Welcome everybody back to my second live stream. Today we're going to be talking about my Dungeons and Dragons stories. Um, so I've played D&D for probably close to a year. I guess we're going to probably start with my first campaign because I had a lot of good stories from this campaign. So, for starters, we started out in a campaign in D&D Advanced called the Isles of Dread, and first time I'd ever attempted to play anything like D&D. I'd never role played before, and we go into this campaign, and in the Isles of Dread, there's a lot of dinosaurs, and we minutes into the encounter or minutes into the game, we encounter some bar not called Neanderthals. That's what they were, Neanderthals. And these Neanderthals, we were like, what do we do here? And so we kind of ran away because we were getting wrecked because we had never really played with these characters before. We didn't know what to do. So, but as we're running away, we hear like loud thudding, and we're like, what's that? What's that? What's that? We're freaking out a little bit, and we find out it's a T-Rex. And not only is it a T-Rex, but following behind this T-Rex is a pack of raptors that are essentially just hoping to feed off of what the T-Rex leaves behind. And so the T-Rex just starts tearing down these Neanderthals, and we're kind of second thought because we're a little bit off of where this T-Rex is actually at, and next to because we had been running from the Neanderthals. And but one of the things is I had taken a lot of damage during the Neanderthal encounter, and to numb the pain, I like, here, I'll drink some beer that was in my survival kit. And so I am severely drunk. I drank the entire pint, and I am I believe I was like a dwarf. And so it's like I took this pretty. Actually, I don't think it was a dwarf. I think it was a human. It was a human, and then so the alcohol impacted my system quite a bit. So this T-Rex, though, after realizing we're kind of there, he turns around and starts to come and attack us, and it along with the raptors, it just destroys my party. One of our players in our party actually had been bitten by a raptor, and one of our another party member had thrown a javelin at the raptor, and it gone into the person's leg inside the raptor's mouth, and the raptor was still wasn't killed, so it would just attach to this party member, just crawls off into the forest with the javelin in its face, and we never saw him again. And so continuing with this is I'm like kind of one of the last things the T-Rex tries to go after, but it tries to attack me, and I roll a natural 20, and I'm drunk, and so I actually trip out of the way of the T-Rex and like stumble and fall down the road, and I'm the only member that actually ended up surviving the encounter. So the drunken dinosaur story, that was a fun one. Yeah, that was a good time, and it was it was definitely a very sharp learning curve to go from a level. I think we were either level 1 or level 3. I don't remember if we were given that bonus to move to level 3 immediately, but we never played D&D, and we got put up against, I think it was a challenge rating 17 T-Rex, so it was a big T-Rex. It was not like an easy one. And the DM, understanding it was our first time, actually gave us. He said that it was our patron god Zoidberg, because that's who we chose as our patron god. He had enjoyed our death so much that he brought us all back to life and let us kind of start again. And we actually don't think well, other than a story I'm going to tell later, really ever died besides that. And so actually, kind of going into that next story, we kind of have to talk about first talk before we go to that story. We're gonna have to talk about the pirates. So there was on the Isles of Dread, over to the left. Actually, here, let me pull up a map really quick of Isles of Dread. So here on the Isles of Dread, if you see over to the left, there are some islands, and on one of those islands there was a pirate encampment, and we decided to row our canoes over to this encampment, and we're gonna fight some of the pirates so we could get some loot. Cause that's what everyone wants, is just some more loot. So we're like, yes, we're gonna get some loot, and so we head over to these islands in search of loot, and we fight all these pirates. We end up we don't kill the encampment. We One of our DM actually was had one of his characters who was essentially a god compared to us, running around. And he actually came because his goal was to stop us because we were a neutral and evil group. He was a good group or a good character. I think he was some sort of like astral being that had to be good, and so because of this, he wanted to stop our like evilness. And one of the ways that he was going to achieve this is by destroying our party, but he actually ended up killing these pirates in an attempt to kill us, but he ended up leaving after claiming a ring of water walking, which I'm still mad that we did not get because as the players, I had no idea what they were doing. Really could have used that. But so so these pirates are dead, and we go searching around. We find this chest. It's a trap chest, and we end up opening it. One of our players gets poisoned. But the big payout, we get this sword that allows us to levitate for 15 seconds, and this is given to the person who had actually found it, who was a paladin, I believe, and but the sword actually becomes like one of our favorite weapons and or tools because of one of the ways we use it. And that's where we kind of lead into this next story. We again more dinosaurs. We found ourselves on a wooden bridge, and as we're crossing it, we get attacked by pteranodons. And they normally wouldn't have posed a threat, but when you're on top of a really unstable wooden bridge and they can fly and you can't, that becomes an issue, right? So we start trying to attack these things the best we can, but several of us are getting knocked off, and we're falling down this canyon and there is a river at the bottom of the canyon, but there's enough space there. It's like you tumble and hit the sides of the walls that you actually end up dying or going unconscious. But the only person who remains on there is the person who had this sort of levitation, and so I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my party member, and I'm like, could you Palpatine one of the pteranodons, referring to when Emperor Palpatine does his jump spin attack like thing. And so we ask our DM, and he's like, sure, if you get a natural 20, you can do it. So party member rolls, gets a natural 20, and he Palpatines the pteranodon. And we did that to like 3 or 4 pteranodons. We just kept drilling through them with our swords, and it was hilarious. And actually, when he finally made it down to the bottom of the canyon, we were all dead. Like, we were all dead. And there's only one person in the main town who can actually resurrect people. So he essentially just he roped all of our bodies together, and he then after roping us together decides to take us, and he canoes us down the river as like a raft. And as part of this like raft thing, he ends up at the very end of the river, which actually you can see the river. It's that big main river that's going through the center. At the very end, we had some Neanderthal allies with us that had a canoe down there, and so they load all of our bodies after he's rafted down the river into the canoe, and brings us down to the main village, and in which once we reach the main village, he takes all of our money, resurrects us, and it was pretty dang fun. Like, not gonna lie, and I thought it was a hilarious story that he rafted us together. I mean, Palpatining, and this became like one of his major moves. Like, it's not just like a single time thing. This becomes, yeah, and so that was a good story. I think for Isles of Dread, there's one other story, but it's kind of obscene and gross, so we're not gonna really talk about it. But I guess we can kind of talk about a character that I mentioned yesterday during the live stream, and it's Welby, and he was first introduced in the Curse of Strahd, and originally I had only like I just created this character. I was like, what's an absurd character? And I was like, maybe a halfling monk. That sounds kind of weird. So I created this Kensai monk who's a halfling. And he doesn't have much of a backstory. So he's like, he was just a dumb character, and I'm like, whatever. But part of the beginning of Strahd, you have to walk between these, down this road. And as a joke, I'm like, all right, well, as he's walking down, he keeps disappearing behind trees and reappearing behind other trees, kind of like in a cartoon, and just whispering "ninja" every time he does it. And this kind of just becomes a joke throughout the entire thing, where he kind of like, uh, I don't know, how Falco is always like Falco punch, Falco kick. Every time he does that, he just like whisper. Anytime Welby does anything sort of stealth related, he just whispers "ninja." And as he's running around and like doing all these crazy retarded things, he's like just screaming ninja. But we make it to the intro dungeon, and Welby at this point has shown interest in eating dead humans. He's been very threatening to children. And as we enter this house, we find a secret room after Welby literally rips off every book on his shelf, and the shelves in this area. And but I also recognize a lot of the names after an arcane roll, or an arcana roll. I've realized that I recognize the name of a lot of these books, and that's where his story begins to start unfolding, where he's now part of, like, for years, he, after a tragic accident, ends up in the forest by himself, and so he's a little bit of a hermit. And because of this, the only really person he talked to was a monk, and this is how he becomes a monk. But it's also, the monk would bring him books on a weekly basis, and that's how he got in his arcana knowledge, which I thought was a really fun story. But now the big thing is with Welby is, the more like he becomes like this defined character, he slowly becomes like my favorite character. And as we continue on in this dungeon, right, we end up in the basement, and there's this rotting wood table, and I have no idea whatsoever brought this about me. I'm like, can I chew on this table? And DM's like, sure, why not? So I end up sawing off a corner of this table and just keeping with me and eating it, and that just becomes part of Welby. Well, at this point, it's not part of Welby's character, but then we actually run into a mimic, and it's a mimic shaped like a door. And as a joke, I'm like, oh, I just ate wood. Can I bite this mimic? Because it's mimicking wood. And our dude's like, yeah, whatever. And because I'm a Kensei monk, I can use my key points as extra unarmed attacks during a turn. And so and biting's an unarmed attack. So I ended up chewing a mimic to death in one turn. And that's when Welby became a wood eater. And that kind of leads us into the next story is in Strahd as well. Welby is this kind of we meet, we're in this town. It's the next town from where we started at the intro dungeon. I can't remember the name of it. And inside this town, we find this coffin maker. Sorry. And this coffin maker, it looks like it's closed, but we can kind of hear some movement inside. So I start banging on the door. I'm like, "Let me in. Who's this? I want in." And nothing happens. Some guy responds, "Go away. I don't want you guys here. I'm closed. Leave us alone." And I'm like, "Well, do you have any wood?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I'm like, "Would you sell me?" And he's like, "Yeah, just go away. I'm come back later." And we ended up breaking into his house. We find out that there's a nest of vampires in his like attic. We fight them, and actually, as part of this fight, there's this vampire lady who can turn invisible. And I ended up, as Welby, ended up running up someone's back, and I'm proficient in longswords, so I have this huge longsword that's way bigger than me because I'm a halfling, and I just freaking pull out this gigantic longsword, run up someone's back, and jump and stab right into the back of this lady and kill her, which I still think is one of the most epic kills I've ever gotten in D&D. And but once we end up finishing that, I ended up like eating like half of the freaking entire building, or well, not the building, but like half the guy's wood, and tried to get him, but he just sadly didn't have any like solid wood. It was just like, basic wood. But yeah, and so that was a fun time. And Welby too. Eventually, like kind of as part of his character, it is kind of a joke. He eventually befriends Strahd and actually kills his all of his friends, and like then there's gonna be statues that are kind of look like this that are gonna be built across the little piece of Shadowfell that Strahd is like controlling, because Welby and Strahd became like BFFs and they ended up taking over everything. And so yeah, I thought that was a really fun story. And Welby, I think, will always and forever be one of my favorite, if not my favorite, D&D character I've ever made, just because he was just such a good character, and he just was a real creation of mine. And even today, like I have a document called the Chronicles of a Peculiar Halfling that I'm still writing, where it's journal entries from Welby throughout his life, and I'm writing a campaign based on him. For example, like here's an entry. Let's see, like when he was first found or when he was by himself in the forest. Very entry. It's in journal entry number 9, and it says, "Though I once hated this journal, that I am found alone in the woods, I have found some comfort in what I have created to be a friend of sorts to help me from going mad. Speaking of which, I think I may have gone mad on deciding to come here. It's been a mere 10 days, and I miss the community. Fending by yourself at 19 has proven far more difficult than I had anticipated. Well, I must go gather some food and wood before light has gone, so that I may hopefully live another day." And this is definitely an interesting thing, because you can see Welby here, and he changes a lot over time, but he's not as tough as he once was. He was a kid. He was 19, and especially for a halfling, that's not super old. And yeah, he's definitely, especially too with the halflings being a very community based group, he's a little lost, and I really enjoy his character. And I think being able to write something that was based off of a character, I think, is so much fun. And I really cannot wait to continue working on this and continue sharing it with you guys on these live streams. And yeah, so I think that's all I'm gonna have tonight. And tomorrow, possibly, I'll do a little bit of an earlier live stream. These late live streams, just because it's been the weekend. And this is when I've had time and thought about doing it. But yeah, so I guess I will talk to you guys tomorrow, and I think we're gonna go over some more of the Chronicles of a Peculiar Halfling, and maybe look into some like, I don't know. We'll see what's going on. Probably mostly talking about Welby and my new campaign that I'm writing. So yeah, see y'all on the flip.